All right, welcome everybody. Hey, Nicole. Wow, mysterious things are flying over here. How is everybody tonight? Tonight we're going to be talking about spirits and what are spirits. So please say hello, tell us where you're from. How was your day today? Putting things on YouTube and we're live. All right, so say hello, tell us where you're from. How was your solstice? How is everything going? It's Monday. It's so funny because I was just starting this. We're going to talk about spirits tonight. And just as I was getting everything ready, my clock just mysteriously fell over. So I guess the topic is matching what's happening right now. So how is everybody? Good morning. My own. Hello. So tonight we're going to talk about spirits. You're good, Carolyn? Oh, good. Did you have a good Monday? Everybody doing okay post solstice? We're in a new energy. We're in a new time frame. Everything is moving us towards the harvest. So it's a good time to get your goals in alignment and, like I talked about last week, hitting that mark of where it is you want to go and what you want to do and who you want to do it with. I think during those times of transition and change, you think about what you really want and who you want to do stuff with and who you want in your life and the direction that you're headed in. And that's always important. Who you want to do it with. Sorry, I'm figuring out my YouTube here. So, anything new? Anybody have any news to share? Otherwise, we're going to jump right into our topic today. So today I wanted to talk about spirits and what are spirits and kind of the shamanic cosmology around spiritual events, spiritual things, because the foundation of shamanism is spirit is in everything. And that concept can seem really big to a human mind. Because when we think about spirit, people say it in all different types of ways. But I wanted to go over what is spirit and what are the different types of spirits that we encounter and how these spirits affect our life. Because there are many different types of spirits, and it kind of is a catch-all word that we use, and we say, oh, it's spirit, or it's spirit. You hear spirit all the time. Spirits are telling me, well, what spirits? And that's something I see a lot in the spiritual community is this mention of spirits, but unfortunately, because of the English language, we don't have a lot of words to describe the different types of spirits. Whereas in shamanic cultures and indigenous languages, we have language to talk about these things. Like when we talk about spirits, we can go very specific because we have the language that supports spirit, and then people know, oh, this kind of spirit versus this kind of spirit. But in our English language, we don't have a lot of that because it's not rooted in a shamanic culture. It's not rooted in what they call animism. That's the modern day word, is animism, which just means spirit is in everything. Just like you have a spirit, all life has a spirit. The trees have a spirit. The ant has a spirit. The cockroach has a spirit. The bushes have a spirit. The rose has a spirit. Everything has a spirit. And what does that mean? And that's kind of the catch-all word that we use. But it's the force that animates you. And, there's a lot of different ways you can talk about spirit, because it's also used to talk about wine or alcohol, and they say, oh, there's spirits. It's all God. It's spirits, right? Yes, it's all God. God is a creator. God is the creation force that created all life, right? But spirit is an individual life force that you're given through the creator. So creator created everybody to have a spirit. And so the spirit, when we talk about spirit, it's an essence. It's something that transcends your human body. It's something that goes beyond your physicality and goes into the ethereal realms. So when we talk about spirit, it's the thing that you come in with that animates your life. And then it's the thing that you leave with when you exit this body that continues to go on, right? And so there's a difference between spirit and then like soul, but we're not going to go into soul yet. But spirit can be the accumulation of your memories from this lifetime and previous lifetimes too. But when you pass, the ancestors always said the most important thing is how you pass, because that is the essence that you will leave your body. Okay. So that's why there's a lot of emphasis and focus on how is your spirit in your life, and then especially as you're coming to an end in this lifetime, because in shamanism, spirits can affect everything. They can affect family lineages. They can affect how you die and where you go after life. It can affect a lot of different things, and it can make people sick too if you're sensitive to spirits. So spirit is kind of a supernatural essence, or, even a being. And then there's different types of spirit. So when we talk about spirits, we always want to kind of identify what kind of spirits. And I know in the spiritual communities, they have all these different spirits that we can talk about, right? But the first doorway and the first spirit that we want to think about is our ancestors. Okay. And our ancestors, we have two types. We have the benevolent ancestors, and then we have the malevolent, I can never say that word, but the malevolent ancestors, the ancestors that didn't die in the good way, that are, what we call ghosts. And those are the ones that now a lot of people talk about when they talk about family curses or generational curses, or what we call hungry ghosts. Those are the spirits that we focus on feeding and appeasing and helping them to find their way home. We call it the good place, to find their place, Some people would say like heaven. Because what happens to spirits too, depending on how they die and the type of life they live, is they can get stuck in between realms or worlds. And so in a lot of our culture, our practices and our ceremonies, it's about, finding the ones that are the most benevolent. So a lot of times those are the ones you're going to have a close connection with. They could be mother, father, grandmother, grandfather. The ones that you knew in this life, that loved you in this life, that want the best for you, those are going to be your benevolence, right? Then the malevolence, the ones that aren't, maybe further back, but they also could be those close relatives depending on your relationship. So we try to first identify that. And how do you know your ancestors are malevolent or not, they didn't die in the good way? Is when you start having those generational problems. When you start having those generational curses, those generational problems such as alcoholism, patterns of suffering, trauma, pedophilia, things that, are swept under the rug, but are passed down. You start noticing patterns. Oh, the father did that. The grandson does that. It goes on and on and on and on. And no matter what you do, it's like it never solved. No matter what, that problem keeps emerging through the generational line. And that's why we say the healing goes 7 generations back and then 7 generations forward. So the question is, can your ancestral trauma and karmic imbalance affect you without signs? That's a good question. I guess the way that without signs, that's kind of a hard one to answer, because there will be signs of some sort. Whether you acknowledge them or not is another thing. Because alcoholism runs in families, and they may not think that's a big problem until the so-called black sheep of the family shows up and really brings it to the surface. Like, usually that's what the black sheep of the family is. It's the one who brings up that pattern of suffering for everybody to see it, like they spotlight it. And so then you just can't ignore it. So like if alcoholism runs in the family, but people are like functional with it and it's okay, it's never been a problem. But then there's that one person in the family who shows up and just goes all in, and is in and out of rehab and stealing. And, they're bringing up that problem for everybody to see. Because what happens usually with those patterns of suffering is that people don't want to look at them. People don't want to examine them. People want to blame other people for those problems, or they want to sweep them under the rug, or they don't talk about it. They shove it down, or they say, oh, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. But the problem is that somewhere down the line, it's going to become like blaringly obvious. So there will always be signs. And some of those signs might be emotional, because spirit is very emotional. It's tied to emotions. It's also tied to mental health and mental well-being and imbalances with mental illness. It can also be emotional, or divorce. Like nobody in the family stays married and always has unhappy relationships. It's relationship patterns. These are these patterns that cause suffering, and there will always be some kind of sign to it. And there is a karmic thing too, because we're born into the families based on our karma. And that's just the cause and effect part of it. But no matter what, if you are able to stay in your spiritual practice, if you do regular offerings, if you understand the nature of spirit, you can overcome any and all sufferings. And that's the teaching. And that's what the ceremonies are for. That's what the rituals are for. That's what the offerings are for. That's what spiritual power is overcoming spiritual patterns of suffering, or what we call negative forces, or those malevolent forces, those forces that want to cause harm. Good evening. How are you tonight? Tonight we're talking about spirit. So the first level of spirit that we want to look at, we want to feed, we want to make sure is going right, is our ancestors. And that's the first doorway into spirit. And all the ancient teachings, they go into, ancestor work. That's our first responsibility in the spirit world, is to take care of your ancestors. And that's why if you look across the board, any ancient culture, you're going to see a real heavy emphasis on feeding your ancestors, ancestor graves, taking care of ancestors, remembering death dates, birth dates, who your ancestors were, and knowing their stories. And unfortunately, in this time and age, a lot of those things have been lost, and now they're coming back. So it is our sacred responsibility to start recording those things. Like somebody, probably you, in your family has to record those things. You're probably not going to be able to go 7 generations back, but if you can go, 1, 2, 3 generations back and start recording things, that's really good. And then start a practice around ancestors. Your ancestors, knowing who they are, praying for them, offering to them, helping your ancestral lines, and looking at those patterns of suffering, because it's easy to just ignore them until the one person in the family will bring it up to the surface. They're the ones that are going to be like, this family is messed up. There's something here that we need to fix in our family line, because the person who stops it, then stops it for the next 7 generations. Another pattern I've often seen with clients is, generational poverty. Like, one generation will make all the money for the next generation to spend it. And that's something you'll see too. Or I once had a client where the guy said everybody in his family, once they hit 40, they were very successful up until the age of 40. And then some reason 40 was when everybody went bankrupt, something big happened with the men in his family. And so that's why he worked really hard to work on his ancestry. And that didn't happen for him. When he hit 40, in fact, his wealth went up, not down. So there are those kind of things too, gambling problems. You want to look at the patterns of suffering in your family and look at what has affected the previous generations, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, on both sides, if you know those records, or even in your own life. You could look at your husband, your wife, your spouse, whatever. Okay, so are there any questions on the ancestors? Because the ancestors is a big one. And we could spend all day on ancestors. But when you think about spirit, the first ones you want to think about is your ancestors and, what is going on in your generational lineage. And you'll see those patterns very clearly. And I think it's interesting in this time and age because a lot of people are starting to talk about generational curses, generational trauma, generation healing, generational stuff. Yeah. Yep, this is on YouTube. This will be recorded on YouTube. Every live I do is on YouTube, so you can always watch later. Okay. And you could take notes. Yeah, that's a common question right there, Ashen. How to communicate with my other ancestors? How far? I cannot find your on YouTube. Oh, really? It's on there. I see it. It should be on there. Okay. You can go back to the beginning of time if you're able to. And that's why you got to do offerings, and that's why you got to build a communication. So how to communicate with your ancestors is all about your spiritual practice of feeding your ancestors. So you want to communicate with your ancestors, you have to build a relationship with them. And the best, fastest way to build a relationship with your ancestors is through spirit offerings of food, water, alcohol, things that they liked. So part of that is knowing, okay, say you were, your ancestors were Russian and loved vodka. So you start with vodka and some Russian food and some water, and you make an altar. Yes, make an altar. You can do it in your house, or you could do it, outside on the land, out in the mountains, or somewhere where no one will disturb you, and you can leave the food. There's lots of different ways to do altars, but that's the first line of communication is you want to build a relationship with your ancestors. Okay. Wow, okay. I see what the problem is. I see what the problem is on my YouTube. It's on a different channel for some reason. But I will post the YouTube after this live. When I finish the YouTube this TikTok live, I will repost it on my main channel because for some weird reason it's on a different channel. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, we got lots of stuff on ancestors. Okay, how do we communicate with our ancestors? We didn't know. That's how you do it. You start a relationship, and you could go far, far back. I mean, ancestor communication goes way, 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 way back. What would be included in an ancestor altar? Can you let your ancestors know by saying, hey, this is for you? Yeah. Well, the best thing is if you have a picture, I always say start with the ancestors, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, cousins, whoever, and ask them to open doors for you to communicate with the other ancestors that you don't know. And, if you have a picture of them, great. If you don't have a picture of them, but if you have their name, that's okay too. You can put their name. you can do that. Or you can, if you don't know anything, like if you're starting from ground zero, you know nothing, then yeah, you're going to say, okay, this is for my ancestors. And I have lots of videos on my TikTok about this, about the ancestor money, about ancestor altars, and I do regular ceremonies and stuff that I offer. So just stay tuned for that stuff. But just to begin with, just to start, if you don't know anything, you just leave some water and some basic foods like apples, oranges, rice, beans, corn, things that your family enjoys, that you enjoy. If you know something that maybe like a family recipe or something that was in your line, start with those kind of things. But some people don't know anything. Like if you're adopted and you don't know anything about your family line, you just start with the basic stuff and then you build it. And like Nicole said, you want to build it on the east side because the east is where the spirits enter. Another way you can communicate with your spirits, you don't have to do an ancestor altar or anything, is you wake up in the morning and when the sun rises, and you give an offering of tobacco or cornmeal, or if you know a sacred herb from your particular tradition, then you blow on the herb and you offer it to like a tree or plant or whatever. And you ask the spirit world, you say, I want to open the door to communicate with my ancestors. I want to heal my ancestors. I want to help my ancestors. I want to communicate and have signs from my ancestors. You can start with that. Everything in shamanic culture, in indigenous culture, is about offering. We don't just go, hey, help me, and just, I'm in a jam, help me. I mean, you could do that. But when you want to build a relationship with somebody, when you offer somebody food and drink and water and wine and whatever, they're going to like you, right? They're going to be like, oh, I was talking to a client the other day and I was like, the way you do it is from your heart. And you don't like say, okay, now I gave you this, so now you got to give me this. No, it doesn't work like that. You just offer from your heart. You offer it from your heart because the truth about it is they already know your situation. They know what's going on. They know who you are. They know all your problems. They see everything. They know everything. They're praying for you. They're like, oh no, she did that again. You know what I mean? The benevolent ancestors always are looking out for you anyway. So they're like, oh, there she is. There he is. Oh no. So they already know what you got going on. You don't have to tell him. But what you want to do is just offer and say, thank you so much for this life. Thank you so much for all that you have done, all the sacrifices, everything that it took for me to be here on this planet at this time and space. And I want to just give you this, because what this does is it gives them spiritual currency. And what they call this in science is plasma. It's plasmic energy. So they're feeding off that plasma of the spirit offerings, and it gives them spiritual currency where they are. So there's a meaning to it beyond just connection and trying to figure that out. Okay, you're welcome, Sandra. It's something you're starting on your path. You appreciate the info. How long should you leave it out? Also, they accepted your offering. Okay. So if you're leaving it outside, then if you can, you just leave it there. Preferably somewhere where nobody will get to it. And then, like if you're out in the woods or something, the animals or something will eat it. And how your offering was accepted was you will get an answer. You'll get an answer. So a sign will come, a message will come, an idea will come, an inspiration will come, a dream will come, something will be revealed to you, usually within the first 3 days. Sometimes it could take 21 days, but you will get an answer. It could be a feeling like, oh, I feel much better now. It depends on what your question is, like why, say for instance, you have a problem with your work and you are looking for new work and you're stuck. You have no way, and you go out and you do a spirit offering to your ancestors, and then you get a dream. That's very typical. You get a dream, and the dream will show you something and tell you something, and it'll be, oh yeah, I never thought about that. That's the answer. That's how spirit talks. Another way could be somebody calling you. Somebody will call you and out of the blue and give you a message or tell you something. A lot of times, like, even if you're praying and you're like, I want to know about my ancestors. Say you don't have no problem. You just want to know about your ancestors. You do a spirit offering, and then all of a sudden you go onto Ancestry or wherever, and there's the answer to something in your lineage, or you find something. Like, that's how the spirit world works, is that you ask, they will respond, but it's not going to be like, hello. How like in the movies, it's always like, hello, I am your father. I am like this big grand thing. It's not going to be that usually. It's more going to be like a feeling, an intuition, a dream, somebody calling you, the answer. Yeah, exactly. It's funny, right? It's going to be the answer you're looking for, but in a very subtle way. And maybe you were just all stressed out, anxious, this, that, and the other, and there was this big problem at your work, and everybody's giving you this, that, and the other. And then suddenly you put this offering out, and all that goes away. Those people get transferred, or they quit, or this or that, or you get promoted, or something will happen to resolve your problem. How would you know if you're feeding them just to show your love, but aren't expecting anything in return? That's a good question. Okay, so if you're like, please help me, that's when we're talking about. Or, you just think about it like this. You are inviting a very important person. Think of it like this. You're inviting the most important person to dinner. That's how you think about it. Oh my gosh, you make it the best you can. You put all your time and intention and energy and love into, that food, that offering. We do bows, we bow, and we do, prayers and stuff, but, just when you're offering it, maybe light a candle, have some incense, do a cleansing, do a whole ritual. And when you're offering it, sit in silence. That's the best way, is just to sit in silence and act like that person is in front of you eating. That's the best way to do it in the beginning, because then you're not trying to get something or hoping for something or whatever. Basically, the thoughts we have while offering are the intentions and communication. Yes. Mm-hmm. And you're just sitting there, because if you have like specific songs or things you want to offer to, you can do that. But I think in the beginning, when you don't know anything and you're just starting, is just to do it and sit in silence. And sit in silence. And, they say it takes anywhere between 10 minutes to an hour for the spirits to feast. They're 10 minutes to an hour. And, until you've done it enough times, you won't really know when it's done. So you can start with 10 minutes and then you can move it to an hour. You can feel into it, but there's like a intuitive process too, because like, say you're sitting there, you put out your feast and you do some chanting, or you do some singing, or you do some prayers, or you just sit there in silence. You'll kind of know when it's done. You'll have like an inclination, like something will click for you. It'll just know something will happen. Maybe even if you're out in the forest and all of a sudden you're all by yourself and then people show up, you'll know, oh, it's kind of over. Or, you'll kind of know a beginning and an end. And that comes with time and practice and just doing it. And the best times to do ancestor altars is if you know death anniversaries of somebody really important to you, like mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, whatever. Or if you don't know any of that stuff, you want to do a new moon or full moon, equinox, solstice, new year. We have specific dates like harvest times and those kind of dates that where the portals are sort of open, the veil, as they say, is open. Even like Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, those kind of days. Yeah, but so the whole thing about you not expecting anything in return is that you're just lovingly giving, like a dinner party, like a dinner guest. Yeah. Spirit can see our intentions and energy. Yes. And some people will write down, intentions and energy, but the way I always teach it and the way I was taught is that you want it to be pure from your heart and not grabby. Like, because there are people who do those types of offerings and altar work, and that's a different kind of medicine. That's different energy. Those are working with favors. And then, that's a different, energy. But with this, it's just lovingly giving. It's about offerings, because think about it as a person. If somebody was to cook you this big meal and was like, oh yeah, come over. And then at the end of it, they were like, okay, now I want you to fix my financial problems, my health problems. I have my love problems. Think about it. You'd be like, what? Okay, I didn't know I was getting invited to dinner because you want me to fix all your problems. I have been doing that. Tobacco, candle, white sage almost daily. Yes, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, tobacco daily, cornmeal, whatever is sacred to you. But it's more about just the offering, right, Lola? Yes, that's the worst feeling. Yeah, that'd be the worst feeling if at the end of the offering, you're there having a great dinner, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, can you fix all my problems?" And I didn't know I was getting called to dinner because I had to fix all your problems. No, I mean, you just think of it like that from a human's perspective. It's really the same concept. I really enjoy sitting and smoking tobacco with them. Yeah, that's beautiful. The thing about like tobacco and smoke prayers is that the thing about it was that the ancestors said, that first tobacco smoke that you take, or that first smoke, you would hold it. Like when you smoke a sacred pipe, they don't actually inhale it, they hold it. And then when you blow it out, whatever you say next is truth. That was what the elders would do in the ancient times. And they still do, is they would take the smoke into their mouth and they would hold it. And then when they blew it out, they would speak. They would go into council. And when you speak, whatever you're saying now is the truth, because the smoke has been blessed through the spirits. And now whatever you say is truth. It's going to be like, and so people will be like, what's he going to say? What's she going to say? Because now it's from the truth. And that's what the smoke represents, is that it goes through that alchemical process to clear and cleanse and, align you to the spirits. And then whatever is said is from the heart. It's truthful. It's beyond this world. And that's why you smoke the tobacco. So you have the ancestors. Now say on the opposite end, you have these malevolent spirits and they're bothering, like you got all kinds of problems. You got all kinds of, like your kids are all messed up. Everybody in your family's messed up and you're like, help me. You're going to have to pray to the spirits who were damaging to your lineage. And you probably may know some of them. Some of them you may know. Some of them you may not know, because they may be from before your time. And those kind of spirits are like what we call like the underworld spirits. So those spirits want things of the flesh. They're going to want more like, tobacco. They want cigarettes, they want cigars. They want alcohol. They want pork, they want meat, they want the things that they liked. So sometimes you have to think about those things too. And the thing about spirit offerings, and this is the most important part, is it's not what you like, it's what the spirit's like. So if you had this uncle who was terrible in your life and he didn't die in a good way, and you want to, help his spirit, you would give him what he liked. Say he liked Jack Daniels and tobacco and cigars and whatever. Those are things you'd want to give that spirit. And you would have like a conversation with that spirit. When you're giving the offerings, you're going to have a conversation and be like, I know you didn't die in the good way, and I want to help you die, resolve this. Because what happens is that when people don't die in the good way, or when they have a really terrible life, they die in that way. And then they can become what they call hungry ghosts. And hungry ghosts are neglected, rejected, isolated, greedy, selfish, ignorant. They're the ones that cause the problems. And they'll go to the ones who are most traumatized in the family and or the most sensitive in the family. And so when you're resolving those hungry ghosts, it's really about lovingly offering those things, but also kind of, firmly, pushing them out, telling them to go. And depending on how severe the case is and what's going on, that's when we talk about exorcisms and stuff like that. But you can start with that. This is like Spirit 101. Okay. All right. So the next spirit we're going to talk about beyond the ancestor spirits is the spirit guides. Spirit guides. And sometimes, yes, your ancestors can be your spirit guides, but I always put them in a different category, because spirit guides can be people you've known from past lives or future lives. They can be the ones that when you were coming into this life, they said, okay, I'm gonna help you through this time. And they can change through your life. You'll have ones that will be with you for the rest of your life, and you'll have ones that will come in at certain specific times. And the problem with the spirit guides, unlike the ancestors, is that this is more based on your personal experience and or communication with these beings. So there's really not a whole lot of like verifiable information when you're talking about spirit guides. And that's where things get kind of wonky, because when you're talking about ancestors and like mediumship work, a lot of that information can be verified. Some of it you may not know. A lot of times when I go into mediumship work, people are, I don't know, they don't know. But most of the time, if you're talking to somebody they know, they're going to recognize that that spirit is somebody they knew. But when you talk about spirit guides, you can get a reading with somebody and they say, oh, your spirit guide looks like da 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 da. But you're going to have your own personal experiences with that to really feel it, know it, and experience it for yourself. And spirit guides, could be, any which way. They could be man, they could be woman, they could be from any time frame, they could be from past lives, they could be from future lives, they could be from all kinds of stuff. And I think that's where we get into more of the mystical realms, and those are more personal experiences that you're going to have with spirit guides and different things. So that's kind of a more intimate, and a lot of people probably will never know their spirit guides, meet their spirit guides, have any connection to their spirit guides, but a lot of people will, and they'll experience those spirit guides through dreams and or through experiences. Christy Lou says, yes, I have met many of my spirit guides. That's good. And that's a very personal experience, right? And I always say that's sacred. Be careful who you share that with too. And, and the problem with spirit guides too is that people can, feel like they're making it up, or when you have experiences with spirit guides, you be like, am I delusional? Am I crazy? Am I, you know, I don't think those kind of experiences are meant to be shared, really. I feel like spirit guide experiences, and you might have meditations with them or meet them in journeys or, spiritual work, and those are sacred and special to you. Those are the beings that are sacred and special to you that you build relationships with and you talk to and you communicate with and you, experience on a personal level. And most people always say, well, who are my spirit guides? That's a common question in readings, is who are my spirit guides? And when people ask who their spirit guides are, they will show up. They will definitely show up. They will reveal themselves. They will show who they are. You just have to ask. And spirit guides can be flaky, okay? That's the one thing about spirit guides, is they can be like people. They're like your friends, and they can be a little flaky too. Okay, so that's why I always go back to the ancestors, because ancestors are less flaky. But spirit guides, they're just like people. They can come and go. They can answer. They can't answer. But when you're doing your offering, that's a good time to ask the helpful spirits, the celestial beings, the benevolent beings, to help you. Because the thing about it is that helpful spirits don't show up until you ask them. You have to invite them. You have to say, okay, please help me. Okay, and then they'll say, oh, she wants help. He wants help. Okay, yeah. Okay, so spirit guides I've put in more personal realms. And how you know that they're spirit guide is that they will gently nudge you. They will gently guide you. Sometimes, like, say, for instance, you're walking and there's about to be a big thing hit you in the head. They'll say, move. You'll hear a voice that'll say, move. That's a spirit guide. It's saying, move. You're about to get hit. So that's like really when they speak the loudest, is if something bad's about to happen. You'll have a voice, a very strong voice too. That's not your voice. And that's part of spirit connection and spirit speak, is like you have to know what your voice is versus spirit voice. It'll be a totally different voice than your own. And it won't be a delusional voice. It'll be a helpful voice. It'll be like, move, move out of the way. You're about to get hit. That kind of thing. And then the next type of spirits, somebody said, I've heard spirit of some sort, a whole group, and I have no clue who they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very common. And I say, like, that kind of spirits, when you're hearing like group spirits, is because those are okay. So spirits, when we think of spirit, like the spirit world, a lot of times it's a collective energy. It's not an individual energy. And that's sort of where it gets wonky with the spirit world, because spirits speak in groups, especially when you're talking about like star beings. And I know that's when we go way woo-woo, but and some people don't like to go way woo-woo. But star beings from other star systems, they speak usually in groups, and it's a collective mindset. So that's where it's a little different for us, because we're in this body and we're in a physical world and we're a very individualistic culture. It's hard to imagine that spirit is a group, and they communicate through telepathy, and they communicate through non-physical ways, non-verbal, non-physical. So if that makes sense for you. And I don't want to go too woo-woo, but that's part of it. And so if you have those experiences with the group stuff, it's because it's a collective mindset, and whatever spirit you're connecting to speak as one. They speak in one group. You've been trying to figure out who they are. They tell me telepathically. It doesn't matter. You also have to think about with that kind of stuff, like how Boris is here now. last time, it's usually Peaky, but here's Horace, my other cat. You have to think about, what are they telling you? When are they telling you? How are they communicating? When are they communicating? That's kind of stuff. Yeah, that's Horace. He's my otherworldly cat. But yeah, so is it common to hear a voice as a kid and it has that fade as you get older? Yes, it is very common. Because you know how everybody had an imaginary friend as a kid, and then at some point you lost your imaginary friend, is because you became more human. Let that side of you kind of fades as you get older because of conditioning and programming and how it's accepted or rejected in your family systems. And I mean, can you imagine if you're a high schooler and you're still talking to your imaginary friend? You wouldn't be too popular. So at some point, usually like 7, 8 or something like that, that fades a lot. That fades. And then at some point, if you're meant to reconnect, it'll come back. And that's what they call the spiritual awakening. Constant communication and conversation 24/7. That I would probably for you, I would recommend learning how to turn it on and turn it off, because you can't function with spirit speaking 24/7, especially a group of spirits. That's got to be frustrating. And that's the difference between when you're working with spirit professionally versus not professionally. Sorry, good. Is this professionally, when you do this work professionally, you have to learn the on and off switch. And I think that's for anybody working with spirit. You have to learn the on and off switch. Oh, if I could learn that, I would be so happy. Yeah, you can learn that. It's not hard. You just have to sit. You have to learn to meditate. First, do an offering and ask spirits to help you. And yeah, well, that's the boundaries that you create. Like you said, they don't respect boundaries. You have to respect the boundary and you have to be firm. And I always teach my students, like, not today. Like, I'm not going to communicate with you today. Have office hours. And that's what meditation and cultivation will do for you, and learning your on and off. So you have to learn where's the doors of your spirit, and where to close them. And I have some meditations on my YouTube channel on how to close your trauma holes and how to, begin meditation, because meditation is the doorway into how to open and close things and how to have boundaries. I joke, I'm going to get an open close sign. Yes, get an open close sign, and it starts just open and close, just open and close. And yeah, meditate daily. Good. Now meditate with open. Okay, now I'm opening to spirit. I'm ready to talk to spirit. And then when you're done, I'm closed. Don't talk to me no more. And that's going to take time, effort, and practice. Because you can't just be walking around open. No. When you're just walking around open, you're going to be very, very appealing to all kinds of different spirits, and some of them are not the nice ones. So you have to know who and what you're communicating with, and who and what you're thanks, Nicole. Somebody putting their phone number up here. Don't put your phone number up here. Okay, so clear the fields. Open, close, open, close. And this is why I also caution against people doing group meditations or group psychic work, unless you know the facilitator is going to really create a safe space, and there's a cleansing process, and there's an open and closing process. Because I see a lot of this stuff where people just go and it's just chaos, because the facilitator doesn't build that safe space. That's the container that you have to build if you're going to hold space. So just, kind of be careful with that stuff too. If it doesn't feel right, trust that. You wake up open for some reason. Any tips to stop that? Yeah, try the trauma hole meditation. It's on my YouTube, and I think it might be a cleansing or something. But basically, what it is you invite the white light to come in, and then you ask to see where the holes are in your aura, and then you close them, you cover them. You make sure before you go out, you're closed up. Yeah. My YouTube is, if you click on the link in my bio, you'll find my YouTube. But yeah, you want to make sure that you have those aura holes closed and that you're not walking around like that. You're not walking around like that, that you're tidied up. Okay, so we talked about the spirit guides. The next one was the nature spirits. Nature spirits are going to be your tree spirits, your flower spirits, your spirits in nature that have been here forever, the rocks, the soil, the everything. And you go into certain places like Sedona, and there's those ancient rocks. That's a spirit. It's a really powerful spirit. You see a face in the rock and you're like, whoa. And those are very old spirits that have a lot of wisdom and knowledge. And when you meditate with those spirits, and if you do offerings to those spirits, then what happens is your wisdom, your knowledge, your healing abilities, all that stuff opens more rapidly, because those spirits contain ancient wisdom and ancient knowledge from the beginning of time. So if you sit with those rocks and you have a meditation, it's like, whoa, and that takes practice too. If you're totally closed up and never meditated, you're not going to be connected to that vibration, because it's a super strong, high vibration. You hear the trees all the time. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's what we need. We need more people to connect to nature, so we stop killing nature. Because the reason people are killing nature is because they don't hear it. They don't hear the sound of a tree dying when they chop it down. They don't hear the sound of the flower dying when they pull it up. They only hear the sound of dollars, but nature has a sound. It's just, can you hear it? Can you hear it? Can you feel it? What kind of offering would you give to a nature spirit? So nature spirits, tobacco, cornmeal, prayer sand, ashes, things of, a nature, like herbs, crystals, water. Water is like the best one you can give. Things of nature. Like, say there was a call a few years ago to give Mother Earth her crystals back. You know how we have all these crystals everywhere? And the call was, take a crystal that you buy or that somebody gave you or something, but you want to give it to the water. Take it back to the water. Give it back to Mother Nature. That's an offering you can do to the water. So nature spirits also include the elementals: earth, fire, water, air, right? So you want to do offerings to those elements too: earth, fire, water, air. Dragonflies next to the river are massive. Yeah, dragonfly has an ancient meaning, and they say where the dragonflies are is a portal to a new beginning. So that would be a perfect place to do an offering. And an offering also is a song. It's a song from your heart. It's a prayer from your heart. It's sometimes, we give our hair, we give our fingernails. We can also give things from ourselves as offerings. So offering doesn't have to be something you buy. It can be something that you already have, and that's part of you, that has meaning and is from your heart. The whole key to an offering is it has to be from your heart. Otherwise, it's really no good. When I moved to my new house, I went to the woods and made an offering to the spirits. That's beautiful. That's perfect. Since then, the land has been purging, and keep giving offerings to that land. Because that's the thing about these nature spirits, is a lot of them are really angry too. There's some angry nature spirits because of what has been going on. So one of the things I always ask people when they're having problems with their house is there a lot of construction in that area? And every time I say that, they're always like, yeah, there's a lot of construction. Yeah, that's why you're having problems. I threw a green crystal in the river on Friday. Oh, that's beautiful, Kelly. Ain't you? You're right in alignment with everything. I find old junk that has pushed through to the top all the time. Yeah. And part of it is cleaning up the environment, cleaning up the trash, cleaning up the junk. Part of that too is maybe why you're sent to those places and spaces. I said a prayer and a fish popped from the water. Ain't that something? So when you gave the crystal, the fish popped up. The fish was like, thank you. There was a lady who did an experiment with Dr. Emoto over in Fukushima with all the radiation and the nuclear waste that went in there. And they collected tons and tons of rocks. Like, people from all over the world sent rocks. And those rocks were prayed upon, like people prayed on it. They put their love and their blessings into those rocks. And then they sent them to Fukushima and they dumped them into the ocean there. And then they tested the water. So they tested the water before and then they tested the water after. And it was really amazing that they found that the water before was filled with all the radiation and poisoning. But when they put those crystals with all the love and intention and prayers, it was clear of radiation. That's the power of prayer. That's the power of love. That's the power of intention. That's the power, because crystals just intensify whatever emotion or energy you're putting into it. So when you put that into there, you're doing a blessing. And then see, like we were talking about earlier, how do you know my offering has been received? Well, she dropped the green crystal into the water and the fish popped up. That's a sign, offering received. Wow, thank you. That's the thing. That's how Mother Nature speaks. Like I said, no voice from heaven came down and said, thank you. But rather, fish popped up. You try to think of yard work as a Mama Earth spa day. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm going to think about that too. Because sometimes when I'm raking leaves or something, I'm like, okay. I had to change a lot of my energies around that too, because sometimes when you have to do yard work or whatever, yeah, you're earth taking, you're taking care of the earth. Like my mom, she has like something like 50 rose bushes in her yard. And every time somebody passes by, people are like, oh my God, I love your flowers. And people are always oohing and ahhing over the flowers. And in the Tonopoali teachings, they always said, when you plant flowers, you're not planting them for yourself. You're planting them for the whole environment. You're planting them for your neighbors. You're planting them for the bees and the insects and the nature spirits and everybody and everything that is going to enjoy and partake in the beauty of what you have planted. And that's why it's a beautiful thing to offer to not just yourself, but to others, the gift of flowers. You love yard work, but sometimes I don't want a spa day through help. Yeah, the thoughts help, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to do this spa day today. Yeah, especially with thorny roses or cactus. Oh my gosh. In Sedona, we have so much cactus. Yes. All right. So then the next type of spirits that we can talk about are mythical spirits. Those are the dragon spirits, the unicorn spirits, the fairy spirits, the what am I thinking? Mermaids and those kind of mythical spirits that the ancestors talked about. And there's a lot of stories about the giants, the this, the that, and all of those spirits that are handed down through mysticism. And those kind of spirits, when you encounter them or you dream about them or you see them or you have visions of them or whatever, those are messenger spirits. And they're kind of on the same line as like a spirit guide, because, there's no verifying that. You can't be like, I saw a dragon. People will be like, you saw what? And those are personal. Not everybody works with dragons. Not everybody works with unicorns. Not everybody works with mermaids. or fairies or whatever. And so those are sort of those personal spirits that I would put in that category too. And not to dismiss them or anything, but just to say like those are personal. You experiencing those personal spirits are personal for you. And we have a lot of legends like about the Naga spirits, about all these different serpent spirits and things like that. So it's documented through history. You planted a huge plot of perennial wildflowers for the pollinators. Oh, I love that. I love wildflowers are the best too, because then they just keep repopulating year after year, and perennials are the best. Sometimes I see a dragon in the clouds. Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is cloud watching. And then that also has a message. Yes, most people would be giving you the side eye. They would be giving that side eye, exactly. And that's why I heard somebody talking about that, and they're like, that's not verifiable, and but just because something is not verifiable doesn't make it less real to you. That's why I say you can't dismiss it, but that's personal. It's not for everybody. You know what I mean? And they have very specific meanings. And so a lot of times with the mythical energies and mythical spirits, you have to go into ancient history and see what the meaning is. Like there's a difference between a blue dragon versus a white dragon versus a yellow dragon versus a pink dragon. But the thing is that there is verifiable information if you're willing to go look for it. Like, I'll give you an example. I used to travel to Japan and do readings a lot. And one time before my trip, I kept getting shown a blue dragon. They're like, you're going to go to the temple of the blue dragon, right? And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And so, I have to wait and get further instructions from the spirit world. And so I'm packing my stuff, going to Japan, this, and that. And I asked my translator, I said, do you by chance know of a temple? And I kind of had the idea of where it was. I was like, it's on the east side of Tokyo. It's, this, and that. But there's a blue dragon energy there. There's something about a blue dragon. And she's like, I know of one temple. It's kind of old and it's not popular or anything, but I feel like that's the one you're talking about. So she took me to that temple. I get to that temple and there's this beautiful Kuan Yin statue, and it's kind of like, just not a temple a lot of people frequent. It's not a popular temple. But wouldn't you believe it, that next to the Kuan Yin statue, there was a big thing about blue dragon and what the meaning of the blue dragon was and the whole history of the blue dragon. I mean, it was just really fascinating because there it was. But it wasn't like a big picture of a dragon or a statue or anything like that. It was the energy was talking about it. And they were saying, this is what the blue dragon means. This is the temple. It was the temple devoted to the blue dragon. So those mythical animals and, the lions and all the different things that you see on like palace walls and temple walls, you have to go back into ancient history to understand what their meaning is. Because when you see like a blue dragon, it's not going to be like, oh, that's my spirit guide necessarily. It's going to be more about that energy, that teaching, and that wisdom of what the ancestors said about that particular being. And there's a lot of power in mythical animals. The dragon, the phoenix, the unicorn, the mermaid. Look at Starbucks. They use their emblem is the mermaid, which has a very old and significant meaning. The story of the last unicorn is a beautiful story. When you go to the tapestries, there's a place up in New York, the Cloisters. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but the Cloisters talks about the story of the last unicorn, and why the unicorn disappeared from this earth was because man's heart got too polluted and it closed and the unicorn disappeared. And then the story is that when we open up to our heart again and when we're pure again, the unicorn will return. So there's a lot of ancient teachings with those mythical animals that are beyond the foo-foo or the woo-woo, but are very grounded in ancient history, knowledge, and wisdom. And so that's where we want to focus with that kind of energy. You met a phoenix when you visited the Akashic records. Yeah. The Akashic records, the mythical animals, and all that stuff is, like I said, more on that personal level, And it's very powerful when you know it. Very powerful and can be life-changing when you have those experiences. I one time sat with the client and we were doing a journey, a shamanic journey, and he saw the phoenix bird, but he had never seen a phoenix bird. He never heard of a phoenix bird. He had no idea what a phoenix bird, and he described it. He's like, I just saw the most incredible bird. I don't know what that was. And when he started explaining it to me, I was like, oh, that's a phoenix bird. And he's like, I don't even know what that was, but that was cool. So it happens. And this is somebody who was very logical, very rational, very reasoning, very successful in this world. And he was experiencing that. So we know it goes beyond the, the woo-woo. And so that's the thing. Your friend who is a shaman found a unicorn connected to me when she did a soul retrieval. Well, I hope it was a good one. No. And then what I find about the unicorn is that the unicorn is about your pure heart, right? It's about your pure heart and how pure your heart is. And then the last spirit that I'm going to talk about today is the ascended masters. Those are your Jesus, your Buddhas, your Krishnas, your what we call gods or goddesses. Those are the beings who walked this earth and ascended this earth. So meaning they walked this earth and laid such a big light, such a big seed that we're still talking about them to this day. And they have walked this world. They know this world. They have been crucified in this world. They have been killed, murdered, slaughtered. They have experienced every pain, agony, and suffering and ascended it. They ascended it through love. We could say saints are also on this level, and you may be gravitating to different ones like Green Tara or whoever, but they're teachers. And so when you experience ascended master energy, it's about teaching you about how to overcome suffering, how to rise above, how to walk your path, those really holy, the holy ones. That's what we call them, the holy ones, the spirits that when you experience that kind of spirit, it's life-changing. It's life-changing. And again, that's a very personal experience. When you experience any and all spirits, it's very personal. And so just as you said, we said the ancestors, if you're working with the underworld ancestors, the malevolent ancestors, the complete total opposite of that would be the ascended masters, the ascended or you can have ascended ancestors too, but the ascended masters, those spirits, when you work with them, it's because you're upgrading. You're moving towards enlightenment. You're moving out of suffering. You're ready to ascend. And that's when they appear. And they could be like birds too. Like a lot of birds come around when we're ascending, when we're moving through, when we're moving up, when we're rising above. Doesn't mean like all your problems go away or anything. And some people say, I only work with ascended masters, which could be true. But when we do shamanic training, the first thing we go through is, what is your pantheon? Who and what do you work with? And the first level of that is clearing you so that you can be clear enough and open enough to even communicate with these spirits. But then the next part is unfolding. Who are these beings? Who are these spirits? Who are your spirit guides? Who are your spirit messengers? Who walks with you on this planet, in this ethereal world, in your ethereal body? The cardinals. Yeah, the cardinals are awesome. The cardinals a lot of times represent your grandfathers and the male ancestry in your lineage. But they could be, birds are like ascended messengers a lot of times because they got the wings, and those wings, they fly in the earth. Blue jays. Yeah, blue jays a lot of times too. It's interesting. We have cardinals and then we have blue jays. And a lot of times blue jays are associated with the feminine line, your feminine ancestors, those beings that walk with you on the feminine line, the matriarchs. And everybody has different messengers, different spirit guides, different everything. And that's what's beautiful about us as humans, is that we walk with these spirits. We talk to these spirits. We work with these spirits because we're a physical body, but we're working in and through spirit. Our breath is spirit. I was told Kali Ma was one of my guides, but I never knew that before I was told. Do they give signs? Yes, they give signs. And this is why it's tricky, because somebody can tell you that, but until you experience it, you're always doubting it. So, what I would do is I would sit with Kali Ma and I would, work with her, learn her chants, learn her songs, learn her offerings, learn what she is, learn her teachings, learn the essence of Kali Ma, and see, does she resonate with you? Do you have a connection beyond what somebody told you? But is it a personal connection? Because that's the only way you're going to know. I had one fly into my car and got stuck. I felt horrible. I buried it with crystals and herbs. Yeah, I know. And sometimes those things happen because that a bird is giving you their body there as a message, maybe some feathers, maybe something. It happens. Like signs that they are there with us trying to help. Yes. Okay, so I would suggest, like, you want to work with Kali Ma, go learn Kali Ma's chants. She has a lot of different chants, but learn when you can, pronounce and say easily. Sing with it, learn it, and see how you feel in your body. That will be a big sign for you. If you feel sick and nauseous, then you'll know that's probably not for you. But a lot of times, like if you ever do kirtan, I don't know if you've ever done kirtan, but kirtan afterwards, and you do the chanting and you bring that vibration into your body and you're singing these ancient songs and ancient prayers, you will feel something. You will experience something. Like one of my favorite chants is in kirtan is Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And you're doing these repetitive chants. But why I say Hare Krishna, because Hare Krishna, I've never known anybody who, when they did those chants, they didn't feel like bliss, just pure and total bliss, like a kirtan drunkenness. If you've never done kirtan, I highly recommend it, because kirtan, you're singing these ancient songs of the universe and you bring them into your body. And whew, it's like this high you've never had. You're high. You're just high, more than any drug, more than anything, any substance could ever give you. You're high on spirit. That's what it is. It's a spiritual high. But there are other chants. There's Buddhist chants. There's Native American chants. There's a lot of different chants. If you know your ancestral songs, those are the best. Those are the best, but a lot of times people don't know them. So you might have to, go to kirtan or go to something else and learn the songs, learn the ancient songs of the universe, because those are the songs that the spirits like. Those are the spirit songs. Even the songs from the old South, that carried the ancestors through slavery and all that stuff, those have power. The spirits come to those. The drum, the flute, the ancient rainmakers, the shakers, all those things have spirit. And when you use those sacred tools, the spirits come. So offerings are not just food, water, they're also songs, they're also prayers, they're also, just silence, sitting with spirit in silence. That's an offering. When you're offering, it's just about offering from your heart and going beyond what somebody has told you, and now going into the personal realms of your experience That's where we're headed as a globe, as a world. As we leave this old fire and we go into the new fire, which begins May of 2024, people telling you is no longer what you want. You're going to feel it. You're going to know it. You're like, I don't want somebody to give me that reading and tell me this stuff. I want to experience it. I want to know it for myself. I want to walk with the spiritual world. I want to see it and feel it and experience it and understand it in my heart. And some people will find that through, classical religion like Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, whatever. And a lot of people will find it through spirituality, through their own experience with spirit and experimenting with the different modalities and finding the one that works for them. And what I think is super exciting is that we're going back to our ancient roots, our indigenous roots. And, everybody comes from somewhere indigenous, but the essence of Mother Earth and her healing and her magic and her, power. And, I was reading an article that said shamanism is the #1 growing spirituality in the world. And I think that's so beautiful because we're returning back to the matriarch, to the beginning of time, to what we knew and understood in the ancient times. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope that was helpful for you. And please keep in touch and let me know how the spirit world is working in and through you. I'll be back next Monday, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard for another live. Thank you so much. Many blessings. Bye.